Your baby will not remember this. That is what everyone says. That is what feels true when you are sitting in the dim quiet of a 3 a.m. feed, their body warm against yours, their eyes locked onto your face with an attention so complete it almost doesn't feel real. You tell yourself, they're too young. The hippocampus isn't mature enough in the first years of life to form the kind of conscious, retrievable memories that persist into adulthood. This is why you don't remember being 2 years old. The science on this is real, and the people saying it aren't wrong. They are, however, only half right. Memory is not one thing. There are several things. There is explicit memory, the kind you can retrieve, describe, narrate, and there is implicit memory, emotional memory, the memory that does not live in what you recall, but in who you become. The memory that determines how safe the world feels without knowing why, how trustworthy other people seem before they have done anything to earn or lose that trust. Whether your nervous system defaults to open or to guarded when a new relationship begins, that kind of memory is being formed right now, in this feed, during that specific gaze, in the most ordinary moment of your day. And here are 10 things that gaze quietly, permanently building in the architecture of your child. The first is the most fundamental thing a human nervous system can learn, and your baby is learning it every single time you hold their eyes during a feed. By 3 months old, a baby has enough visual range to look at practically anything in the room, the ceiling, the window, the dog, the pile of laundry in the corner. They still choose your face every single time. That is not limited vision. That is preference. And in 2017, a team at the University of Cambridge published a study in PNAS measuring what happens inside that preference. Using functional near-infrared spectroscopy, they tracked neural activity in both infants and adults during face-to-face interaction. When a baby locks eyes with you, when that feeding gaze happens, their brainwaves begin to synchronize with yours. The same frequencies, the same rhythms, firing across two separate nervous systems simultaneously. Mutual gaze produced the strongest neural coupling the researchers had ever recorded between individuals of different ages. Your baby is not simply looking at you during that feed. They are locking their developing brain onto yours, using your neural activity as a scaffold, a template for how a human brain is supposed to organize itself. And that template is being downloaded right now, in the quiet, while you thought nothing was happening. The second thing being built is something researchers at MIT's Brain and Cognitive Sciences department spent years documenting, and it involves the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, decision-making, emotional regulation, and the entire architecture of adult reasoning. Babies who receive more contingent face-to-face interaction in the first 6 months, meaning interaction where their cues are noticed and responded to, show measurably greater prefrontal development. Not marginally greater, measurably. The feeding window is the densest concentration of contingent interaction most babies will receive on any given day. You are close, you are still, you are available in a way that no other moment in a busy household reliably produces. Every time you hold their gaze and respond to what you see there, you are not just feeding their body. You are doing structural construction work on the brain they will think with for the rest of their life. The third thing that gaze is building is an emotional map that will govern every relationship your child ever has. Researchers at the University of Washington found that by 5 months, babies can distinguish between a genuine smile and a performed one. By 6 months, they track your emotional state and use it to calibrate their own response to the world, a process developmental psychologists call social referencing. You look afraid, they freeze. You look calm, they explore. You look engaged, they reach. During a feed, your face is 12 inches from theirs. It is the entire world. The map they are drawing of your expressions, your micro movements, the way tension arrives in the corners of your eyes, that map is being drawn with extraordinary precision, and it will be the template against which they measure every human face they encounter for years. The fourth is trust at a neurological level, and it is being deposited in very small increments during every single feed where you are present. The still face paradigm, designed in 1975 by Dr. Edward Tronick at Harvard, established something that changed developmental psychology permanently. When a mother goes suddenly expressionless mid-interaction, face open, eyes present, but nothing behind them, a baby who is engaged and happy will attempt to re-engage her, big smiles, pointing, vocalizing, everything that normally works. When it fails, they escalate. Within 90 seconds, most infants begin showing physiological stress responses. Cortisol rises, heart rate climbs, some begin to cry. Others go flat themselves, withdrawing into a shutdown that mirrors the blankness across from them. What Dr. Tronick concluded from 20 years of running this study is not subtle. Babies are active participants in a constant emotional conversation, and that conversation happens almost entirely through the face. Your presence during a feed, your actual emotional presence, not just your physical proximity, is the thing that teaches a baby nervous system that the world is responsive, that other people can be reached, that reaching works. The fifth thing being built is harder to name, but it is perhaps the most permanent. Researchers studying implicit memory formation have identified something they call procedural emotional memory, not the memory of events, but the memory of what interactions feel like, the rhythm of them, the reliability of them, whether connection feels available or conditional, whether closeness is followed by warmth or by withdrawal. A baby who is fed in arms, with eye contact, with the ordinary responsiveness of a present parent, is having a specific procedural memory written into their nervous system repeatedly across hundreds of feeds over months. The memory is not, I was held on a Tuesday in March. The memory is, closeness feels like safety. Reaching feels like it works. Being known by another person is something the world allows. That memory will run underneath every relationship they ever have. The sixth is language architecture, and this one surprises most parents. Developmental linguists at Stanford have documented that the face-to-face contact during feeding is one of the earliest sites of language acquisition, not because words are being spoken, but because the conversational structure is being established. The rhythm of gaze and response during a feed mirrors the turn-taking structure of conversation. You look, they respond. They vocalize, you answer. That back and forth, repeated across hundreds of feeding interactions, is building the neural infrastructure that spoken language will eventually inhabit. The babies who receive more of this contingent face-to-face exchange in the first months show earlier language onset and broader vocabulary at 18 months. Your feed is not just nutrition. It is the first classroom language has ever had. The seventh is stress regulation capacity, the ability to tolerate difficulty without being overwhelmed by it, and its foundations are being laid during every calm, connected feed your baby has. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the system that governs cortisol response, is calibrated in the first year of life by the consistent experience of being co-regulated by a present caregiver. When a baby is dysregulated, hungry, uncomfortable, overstimulated, and then brought to a feed where they can see your calm face, hear your voice, feel the physical containment of being held, their cortisol levels drop, their heart rate stabilizes, their nervous system learns, through repetition, that it can return from activation to rest. That capacity, the ability to move from stress back to equilibrium, is one of the most consequential things a person can carry into adulthood. And you are building it now, one ordinary feed at a time. The eighth is identity, not self-concept in any abstract sense. The most primitive version of it, the sense, arriving before language, before conscious thought, that there is a self that is separate from the world, and that this self is recognized by another. Developmental psychologists describe the moment an infant looks into a caregiver's face and sees recognition looking back as one of the earliest organizing experiences of selfhood. You see them, they watch you see them, and something in the architecture of a human brain registers. I exist in a way that another person can perceive. I am real in the way that matters. This happens during feeds. Across that 12 inches of distance, in the ordinary quiet of an unremarkable Wednesday, say their name, say it softly, say it like it is the most specific word you have ever spoken, because for them, it is. The ninth is the window, and this is the one that requires your attention most directly. The brain's plasticity in the first 2 years of life is never that high again. Synaptic connections are forming at a rate that will not return. The interventions that are possible at 6 months produce outcomes that interventions at 2 years cannot replicate, not slightly different outcomes, categorically different ones. This is why, if you notice something about a baby's gaze during feeding that feels absent rather than present, if they are consistently avoiding eye contact, looking through you rather than at you, not tracking your face across the range, that development would suggest that is worth attention and not dismissal. Every baby develops on their own timeline. One instance of distraction tells you nothing. A consistent pattern tells you something. The most well-calibrated instrument for reading your own child is you, because you have been doing it since the first hour they were born. Trust that. The 10th is the one most parents do not realize they are building because it looks like nothing. It looks like sitting in the dark at 11 p.m., exhausted, doing the thing again. But what is actually being built during that unremarkable feed is a record, a deposit made into an account whose balance will determine whether another person grows up knowing, in the wordless way that matters most, that they are worth showing up for, that someone chose presence when absence was easier, that being known by another person is not something that has to be earned because it was given, freely, repeatedly, in the middle of the night, in the dark, with no audience, and no reward other than the weight of them in your arms. None of this requires money. None of it requires a better version of yourself than the one who is already there. What it requires is the ordinary, repeated presence of a person who shows up. That is all. And that is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. The next time you're in the chair at midnight, their eyes locked on yours with that total unblinking attention, and some part of you wonders whether any of this matters. It does. More than you will ever be able to fully measure. The gaze they are giving you is not random. It is not reflex. 15,000 years of evolution built that gaze specifically for this moment, for this face, for you. Their brain is reaching for yours. It is using your neural activity to learn how to be a person, how to feel safe, how to trust the world and the people in it. Hold their gaze back. That is the whole instruction. It was always that simple. Drop a comment below and tell me, what does your baby's face do during a feed that you have never been able to fully explain? Because whatever it is, now you have a better sense of what is happening inside it. And if you want to understand why babies laugh at nothing, at empty corners, at 3 a.m., at something only they can see, that is the next video. The science behind it is stranger than any explanation you have heard before.